Good evening to you all. Welcome to this round of panel discussion, which is very close to my heart, cybersecurity, and definitely during this pandemic times, cybersecurity is something like a discipline which needs to be embedded in today's, work culture, and you can say you cannot say that like it has to coexist together. Whether at any point of time, information and cybersecurity is a sort of something which gets as a discipline embedded in you. So we talk about people or our children who talk on social media, so we really want to be making an awareness to them. You're speaking to the strangers, how are you dealing, all those things. Similarly, the corporate life cycle also works along with how the discipline in terms of working from home, or the cybersecurity threats that we are envisaging, or are basically anticipated. How are we geared up in terms of web 4.0? So with this, I will start with my series of discussions with my some of the key panelists, and I welcome you all to this common platform, especially. So good evening to all of you. So, and good evening to all my people who are virtually now watching us over this webinar. So my first question would be to Ramesh, basically. So I would like to ask you, see, in India, it features in the top 10 countries today, facing countries with, facing cyber attacks. As we get to have more and more into the online bandwagon, what is the standpoint that as a part of the policy framework, you should take? So over to you, Ramesh.
Thanks, Puneet, for that question. And I would like to start with India before the pandemic started with an ambitious journey of a $5 trillion economy. We still continue to have that focus point. And added to that bandwagon is the new mantra of Atmanirbhar Bharat, which means that we need to be more self-reliant as well. All of this, if you're aspiring for a $5 trillion growth or Atmanirbhar Bharat, obviously the tech consumption and enablement go hand in hand. Without that, we can't progress beyond a point. And therefore, the government is aware of it. I mean, I interact extensively with regulators and authorities in government. There is certainly the kind of appreciation for the need for a cyber secure nation, so that people and businesses are secure. Importantly, mantras and words like critical infrastructure protection, need for protecting the internet and the backbone of the country, and all that form part of this discussion. In fact, recently, Australia is ramping up its cyber defenses because they've decided to strengthen their essential networks, resilience, and critical infrastructure. So India is also looking at similar things. We have institutions like CERTIN and NCIIPC. The government is pushing for mandatory audits. There is this new entity which they can set up called the Cyber Surakshit Bharat. The telecom is looking at re-looking at their supply chain security and so on. In fact, we recently also had the National Policy on Electronics announced, which talks about Atmanirbharta and building a secure supply chain from trustworthy sources, because your entire backbone is today dependent on multiple cocktail of foreign technologies. So there is certainly talk about that, but these are still work in progress. More needs to be done. And I also feel that there is also need for India now to look at a cyber security force, which is like you have the police, paramilitary, and army. We need to have a cyber force both to attack and defend. So these are all the priorities which the government should be looking at. They are looking at it in bits and pieces, but needs to be done.
Thank you. My next question goes to Sunil. So, in terms of as we are hearing more and more cases of online frauds in terms of cybersecurity, phishing, hacking, and people complaining that support from the government, it needs to be strengthened fast. So, how do you think that is the government well equipped to handle such kind of cyber attacks, and what should be the laws as far as such kind of things are concerned? More and more people are getting prone to cyber attacks. The corporates where the can say that data is getting compromised. So I will leave to you that how do you think that the discipline of from directly from the government has to be set in and set forth?
Okay, thanks, Puneet. There are a lot of things which government has to do in with reference to this, no, the concerns which you have raised. One of the most important thing is the Data Privacy Act or the Data Privacy Law, which is no, which is pending in the Parliament to be passed. So that is something which the government should work on. Should first concentrate on data privacy related issues. There are cyber attacks because cyber attacks generally are from our neighboring countries, and we are equipped with those kind of we have ISPs, we have those solutions at ISP level who are able to monitor and manage those kind of attacks. But still, there are, from a law point of view, there are a lot of things such as the awareness. When you talk about an awareness, that is something which is missing, and the laws which are not clear and not understandable to the customer, to the end users, to those people who are being part of this journey. So this is where the government has to work on those areas and make it more clear and make it more understandable for those people.
Thanks, Sunil. My next question goes to Bhavesh, basically. So, Bhavesh, as we step into a new era of work culture, working from home under the pandemic's time is the new neo-normal when people are talking about that. So, the definition and the spellings of neo is reached to neo right now, right?
Yeah.
So, I would suggest that I would ask that what does it mean as a role of a cyber heroes or cyber actors? What is the steps that is should be taken? How should the organizations develop a culture of cybersecurity where it is not just the IT issue but is a work culture? Or as I spoke earlier, that it has to be a discipline which has to be embedded in terms. So how do you think a collective responsibility from government, from individual, from organization perspective, the security framework needed for this, the corporate should be geared up, whether it is in regard to BYOD or it is in terms of like providing corporate level desktops, laptops, whatever be the use case, how one has to be geared up to, working and accepting this as a new culture.
Yeah, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. So we started with culture, cyber culture. So in fact, this information security was never, exclusive a domain of IT. Principally, it was it's an organization issue. But I'm glad now acceptance this as a culture in organizations are growing. Now it's a board issue. One of the board main agenda point is cyber issue. So acceptance has increased in organization to accept that cyber is a collective effort and to comply the requirement related to cyber security and to protect our organization for any kind of cyber attack from within or outside. There should be a collective effort, not only from IT, from business side, need to give that equal effort to identify that all risk and protect against those risks. Then we, in new world, you ask what's the challenges CISO is facing? Like when that last week of March, when this pandemic started, before that, our security framework has a different kind of setting. And suddenly we have a new challenges came, like it was not only disaster, it's a disaster, it's actual disaster we face, like everything is shut down. So in a earlier level of BYOD devices, suddenly when everyone was every organization was shut down or everyone start working from home, then we identified few new challenges where every user is start logging from different devices. We don't know their operating system, and we know we don't have any framework to control those devices. We don't have any sense like how to manage all those devices getting to our data center or our network devices. So it was a very challenging job for security professional. I don't think not only in my organization, across industry, everyone having this question like how to handle these kind of traffic. So every organization has taken at least 1 week to understand that type of traffic we are receiving from different kind of devices, analyzes, and then we create a framework to control all those traffic and issues which we are facing related to security things. So for that we have taken few steps to protect our environment from these kind of different kind of devices, which is BOID devices. And so first thing we started thinking, look, we will never compromise on our basic stuff. So patching, antivirus updates, and giving awareness to the user, like, look, where you have to log in, what kind of Wi-Fi you are logging, and what kind of Wi-Fi you should not log in. All these things we started thinking, and then we streamlined that entire security framework slowly. As far as contribution of government are concerned, to protect our entire cyber network in this country, and to grow to $5 trillion economy, as our first speaker said, look, cyber intelligence is very important, not on a level of country, like even within organization. So everyone has to understand the importance of cyber intelligence, including our government, to protect overall economy.
Thank you, Bhavesh. That was a very good insight. So moving on to Abhishek. So Abhishek, I just wanted to know, with the increased digitization and penetration to the rural markets, am I audible?
Yes, you are, Puneet.
Yeah, clear.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So I could see you, putting your finger. I thought I'm not.
Now I lost you.
Yes.
Audible. Fine. Thanks. So I was asking with increased one, the data ownership, and to avoid the misuse of the customer data, what steps should be taken in terms of or what are the readiness as far as the India subcontinent is concerned?
So Puneet, I'm afraid I lost you for a minute. If you can repeat your question crisply, it will be great.
Okay, fine. So I said that, with the increased digitization and penetration into the rural markets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is a need for seamless data sharing, fostering the association or collaborations with the businesses. Now, how is India ready in terms of the steps that we are taking to establish the data ownership? Secondly, to even that to avoid any misuse of the customer data that we are having. So how are we geared up in terms of as far as the cyber security is concerned, and during this pandemic times, how are we taking a full control of the customer data that it is not getting compromised?
Right. So it's a loaded question. Let me try and attempt. And let me congratulate you. I think with the first three questions, you've brought in a huge scope, right from where we started in India to know how the government investigation should be done to organizations. So with this question, actually, you're trying to connect the dots, and you're posted me the fourth one. So let me try and attempt this. When we see basically, as far as the overall Indian regulatory ecosystem is concerned, that's where when we say about the policy ecosystem and how clear we are with respect to the policies. So in India, we do have this IT Act, and thereby there were a lot of amendments which came by in 2008, 2011, which talks about a framework of reasonable security practices. And for past about close to 3 years, there have been enough buzz about the new data protection bill, which will change the way and bring us at par, if I may say, to the global level or landscape with respect to the data security and privacy. Now, said that, is this the only thing? No, which is there? There are a lot of other efforts which I may say which are there with respect to some not-for-profit organizations, with respect to or some thought leader think tanks. There is a DAPA framework, which is like the empowerment and the data empowerment and the sharing framework, which is there by India Stack, which already talks about that we should not be talking about stopping the data, but we should be talking about sharing of the data, because that's where the open collaboration and the economy gets opened up. There is a recent initiative which is more so on the lines of, if I may say, Aadhaar, which is sehmati.org. I mean, the way they're saying it is more about free flow of, again, data sharing between the financial organizations for doing the KYC. So to an extent, what I see is there are certain efforts which are there in different corners, whereby this latent need of data sharing, where on one hand it is emerging, there is this ecosystem, policy ecosystem, which is also evolving to take care of the burning needs and desires. But said that, is this enough? I mean, we all realize the value and the power of data, and the way it can lead to cross-channel integrations, maybe make India a digital superpower. But what all it requires is definitely, I mean, there were things which Ramesh shared about having the institutions like NCI, PC, NCCC, CERT already in place. There was a talk about Sunil where he mentioned about there's a need for legal investigation. So these are pertinent needs, how you kind of put in. So for example, when we talk about the very nature of the cyber crime is that it knows no borders, right? So you need those tightened screws for mutual legal assistance treaties. So whether it is about your data being accessed by somebody, whether it is about your network and systems going array, right? So all of those put together, there is a room for, if I may say, wider education and awareness. There is a room for creating those information sharing and analysis centers, whereby that kind of, if I may say, neutral threat feed, which is there pertinent to the sector, not really for an organization. So as concept of the threat feed, which was kind of narrated by Bhavesh, as of now, it is absorbed in piecemeal fashion by different organizations. But the moment we want to make it big, right? And if I take example of BFSI, there are a lot of institutions like IDRBT, CAFRAL, which does a bit of it. But I think there is definitely a need for much more collaborative setup at an India level. And last but not the least, we should look into what some of the other countries are doing. Like, if I talk about Singapore and the stance Monetary Authority Singapore picks up, so they do have cross-industry exercises. So when we talk about, today certain does some drills, but it does some drills very in a limited fashion. But they have gone to an extent where they've linked in the financial ecosystem to an extent where insurance, banking sector and other financial companies all put together are tested onto a single platform, and they are done through a simulated scenarios. So yes, does India have potential? Yes, we have. Do we really see this as a latent need coming into the mainstream of data sharing and data privacy? My view is yes. Is there a scope of improvement? Yes, there is.
So that was a very good insight. Thank you so much, Abhishek, in making us go through that, and your basically the recommendation. Definitely, I think so. We should collaboratively work and take towards the regulatory authorities. What is the readiness in terms of, if the West is doing, why cannot we replicate the same model as the best practices? Somewhere somebody has to start and take a call. So moving on to Ramesh, my question to you would be: what should be the government doing to ensure a cyber Surakshit Bharat, as you talk about? And, what does that mean as far as, in the BFSI space? How is India, getting geared up for cyber Surakshit Bharat to address the modernization and talk about? You're on mute, Ramesh. You will have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks. So one of the things that, I mean, these are again discussions happening in the corridors of government. When Swachh Bharat came, the same discussions translated into Cyber Surakshit Bharat, and then there was talk about Cyber Swachhata, basically to mean, because if you see today, consumers are increasingly, both government and consumers are increasingly moving into the online bandwagon. And if you look at whether they are shopping, banking, entertaining themselves, or even giving access to data, huge amount of government and personal data today is getting generated, and due to which this becomes a fertile ground for any kind of cyber players to actually have a look at, and is susceptible to attacks. In fact, hard-earned monies of people are getting stolen, and we are getting inputs that the police didn't do anything about it. And the blame is often put by the BFSI sector, naturally so, because your audit trails would show that your 3 steps that were required to complete the transaction did get completed. What will not come out is how was the customer compromised. The customer was compromised in a fashion unknowingly. So if you look at the Cyber Swachhata project, it was largely taken by the Cyber Swachhata Kendra, as the government calls it. It was a botnet cleaning and malware analysis center. But increasingly, what the government is also now looking at, and we from the industry, I represent the consumer internet companies, we have been pushing to the government on 2 things. One is to say that the consumer should be made well aware as they get into the online bandwagon on certain hygiene practices that they need to follow. And that is primarily just like COVID as an example. You use a sanitizer, you wash your hands, you wear a mask. What are the strict don'ts for a consumer today as he jumps into the online bandwagon? Because we are risking hard-earned monies here primarily. And the ultimate blame obviously comes either to the consumer platform or to the BFSI company involved or the bank involved in between. So our take is that there should be a curriculum which should now be created in schools, in colleges, for educating people on cyber hygiene, which is the basic need of the hour. At the same time, we are also asking the government to say that one, police should be enabled to be more understandable on the facts of cyber crimes. There should be training set up. And as it was already mentioned, the MLAT mechanism with different countries, because technology providers today are sitting in different countries. Many of them do not share data because they say it is breaching certain privacy laws, and access to data is delayed. So our take is that these have to be strengthened quickly if we have to move towards the Cyber Surakshit Bharat.
Thank you for bringing that perspective with regard to basically India arc or India architecture. And when you talk about, like, all digital, you're moving on to Sunil. So Sunil, I just wanted to know that how will the current situation evolve as the role of these initiatives that are a very big role there. So there are organizations which, if you say that apart from the BFSI verticals, companies or big organizations across the globe are taking a very big call in terms of to appoint their CISOs. Maybe because of work from home culture coming in place, which is the new neo-normal. So how is the world getting ready in terms of a question with regard to cyber risk, when and not if, and how should the resiliency should be in place in terms of implementing any secure work environments or the need be as and when required?
Correct. Yeah. So to answer that, see, CISO is a very crucial now in an organization, and it is now from an organization point of view. Earlier, it was just a kind of a governance, person used to be as part of a traditional CISO if you talk about. But considering the current situation where an organizational risk management strategy, where when it's not about not only human safety, but it's also the information and the data security which a business has to secure. And not only that, but the digital transformation, where where we are talking about a zero trust technologies, zero trust approach. We're talking about a no touch kind of a business with the customers. This is what the people are that businesses are getting into. Considering this situation where we are getting digitized, organizations always need to have a right monitoring in place to identify those kind of risks which are there, which are there with reference to this kind of business scenarios, business use cases. And that is where the CISOs will come into, and as a CISOs we have to get into those kind of monitoring, those kind of our we need to have those kind of implementation done for as an organization. Also, we need to also have to collaborate with business to ensure that we have those relevant controls implemented. That is one more. Finally, what from a resilience point of view, yeah, we need to have a very secure working culture. We need to implement this. There are solutions available in market which are again cheaper, but very cost effective, and that will able to help organizations build a secure environment from a both data point of view as well as from a person safety point of view.
Thanks, Sunil. From a perspective of us, basically a CISO's perspective, I think so. The CISO's role is really evolving, and every day it's a new, you can say a new takeaways that the CISO's role is giving and throwing it to them as a challenge, and we have to get geared up during these pandemic times.
Correct.
So moving on to basically Bhavesh. So Bhavesh, two questions to you basically. One is, in terms of implementing a secure work environments, how do you think the dev security operations play a very big role as far as in terms of enhancing application security, stability, and availability? That is one of the areas. Second, in terms of the critical role of a CISO, where the B2B and B2C challenges are there, especially the customer facing apps. Basically, how do you feel that during this pandemic times, what are the steps that CISO as a forward thinker takes in terms of mitigating those risks? Where do you say that the data should not get compromised, the customer data is secured? Secondly, vulnerability tools like VAPTs are put in place, and you say that you launch the secured apps. So what is the readiness in terms of the CISOs of today?
Okay, so 2 or 3 questions. Okay, so we'll start with how to securing our applications. So as I think yesterday what we were discussing, application landscape, digitization. So digitization has started a long time back. Now that integration of multiple application through API has increased heavily. Fine. So that is the one big change I have seen in application development and deployment across industry. So securing that all these integration level, at API security is very important as of now, because we have seen in past multiple application compromise just due to vulnerabilities in API stack. Fine. So that is a very important while developing any application or deployment of that application. We have to assess that entire structure of data movement from one application to other application through API. That is the first and foremost thing. And one more thing, this security team has a different kind of, not only a role related to assess there any vulnerabilities in application. No, we have to understand the entire structure, data flow from very first the input point to the last output point. Then only we can give that value addition in that this entire framework of application development and till deployment, and then again monitoring. So that's the first thing. Second thing, as a CISO, how we are we can see that how to build that culture for application related activity. Look, in typical environment, that basic stuff of security, like application assessment, regular application assessment, we must keep tab on all new vulnerabilities is coming in the technologies, and what cyber advisories we are receiving related to any particular technology related to some OEM's application. We must keep tab on all these things and remediate all those vulnerability on based on their category of vulnerabilities. That's a very important thing. As one of our previous a panelist says like cyber hygiene. Cyber hygiene is very important because in that protection of this customer data, cyber hygiene is very important for the protection of customer data. Look, our sales team is more aware than me, like what kind of data they are collecting. So he should understand whether we have to collect Aadhaar data or not, whether we have to, what kind of treatment we have to do when we are collecting Aadhaar data, whom to inform or how to store that Aadhaar data. He should be aware what kind of PII information we should collect, what kind of PII we should not collect. So cyber hygiene is very important while protecting our customer data in any environment, whether B2B environment or B2C environment. So cyber hygiene is very important in protecting that particular data.
So as a CISO, I think so we all agree that not only for the heck of building the DevOps or building the mission critical applications which are necessary as a need of the hour, CISO and CISO's organization plays a very big role in terms of before the go live for any such applications happen.
Exactly.
So moving on to Abhishek, my question would be basically divided into 2 to 3 parts to you. One is how are the organizations can maintain a continuous vigil on employees to have a clear vision on the activities which they are doing on the network. That is one. The B part is with the dire need of the an enhanced BCP, business continuity planning, or the organization's trading of security, and how can zero trust can be or mentality can be developed, whether it is a sort of a CASB model, what we are talking about today, right? So how are we as CISOs or organization getting challenged in terms of addressing these issues, which is also a day-to-day issues which we anticipate, we are ready for one, but before we want to address one issue, 3 or further added anticipated issues come to our basically kitty, and we have to be ready for it.
Perfect. So I'll try and answer your questions. In case I miss your question, I'll request you to repeat the question in between. So the first question which you asked is about the employee monitoring, right? It is all about the user activity and what they do on a day-to-day basis. While there are technology solutions available in market and they're deployed almost all the BFSI enterprises, if I may say, primarily in all the BFSI enterprises. So the category of tools is something which is called as a user entity behavior analytics. UEBAs is the kind of is the name point. And then with the existing solution stack, also there are use cases which can be modeled in a way how the user activity is being done. So for example, as trivia as you would have seen, right, everybody carries a bank account. So if your banking transaction is accessed somewhere during the hours which you don't access, or is the amount which is way too weird, let's say it's too huge in size, you always immediately get a call whether no, this was a transaction made by you, or no. So or there are 2 transactions happening parallelly. So this is something which is very common and this has been there. But with this work from home scenario going in deep, the boundaries becoming more and more porous, whereby the 4-wall security or the network security, if I may say, used to play a huge role in securing an enterprise, that's getting faded away. And that's where somewhere I think you asked your second connected question that what's the role you see, Abhishek, of zero trust, right? And whether there is a need to really go ahead with these kind of principles. So the answer is yes to an extent. And in one way or the other, organizations were following this. But yes, I mean, there is a new term also coined in. So I would not say that this is a completely new concept, but this is definitely, I think, Gartner and Forrester of the world coined this as a concept. And there are, if you see product OEMs these days are all banking on these buzzwords. I mean, last 2-3 years, they were all about AI and ML. And these years, this is all about talking about zero trust. But it is all about the pertinent need. So every organization, and when I say it is not only CISOs, even it is the business folks who realize now that they will no longer have that kind of boundary control which they used to have before. So and they also want to enable the enterprise. Enterprise can't shut down overnight just because people are not available in their office premises. So that's where it is something like, you always verify rather than trusting a set of individuals or trusting a set of principles. So how you can kind of lay those ground rules, maybe leveraging some of your existing stack and some of maybe the new age functionalities, the way you kind of carve out maybe the micro segmentation and identity rules within your organization, the principles can be laid in a way that how the access to data through applications be made more secure and still provided flexibility to an individual to access it from outside, right? So that's very much the need. It's doable. It's not something new. It's just about a mindset and how we leverage our current solution stack, plus how we augment it to really pave way of this. So if I may say, since God knows how many years, it has been the security foundational principles like need to know access, defense in depth. So all of these have been there as kind of the fundamentals behind laying down any security framework in place. However, when you talk about the zero trust, how things have to be placed is that I don't verify. I don't verify. The people who I already trust. So instead of that, I start verifying everybody. So rather than actually having that leap of faith. Now I would like to have your question number 3 again. My bad, because you asked 3 questions. So if you can repeat your third question, that will be great.
So what was the dire need for BCP? Are the organizations trading off the basically the trading of the security with regard to BCP?
So BCP, so the way one can see is that business continuity has never been thought of at this scale before by, I think, barely by maybe 5% organizations who would have thought through that entire pan India would be down. So there used to be, if I may say, typically the business processes used to be structured that some amount or some portion of a business will always be running. And they used to actually manage the delta through either having those disaster recovery centers built up, whether it is like your hot sites, warm sites. So there used to be a technology arrangement, there used to be basically a process arrangement, but it always used to be basically a partial scenario. It never used to be, I think, primarily for banks. Few of the banks, you can say they were more so in active because there are more transactions, real-time transactions involved, but it was never to that extent and scale. Now, the combination of security and business continuity, that became heightened during this COVID scenario because we saw enough advisories and there was enough action across whereby the malicious people wanted to leverage the situation and hack into enterprises, right? So that's where the pertinent need of closely looking into, well, we are already dealing with one pandemic. What happens if there is a cyber crisis which also happens at the same time? The organization will be really, really doomed that way, right? Because primarily, this is the crisis which is not really a technology crisis. So COVID is a crisis which is more so people-related crisis, like how you enable the organization working with actually managing the health of the workers, because whatever good enterprise you have, if you don't have the right team, it will go down to shackles. So this, if it adds upon with, let's say, maybe ransomware attacks, we know a few enterprises within they were all in media where they were kind of put forth and halted. They were asked for ransom, and so this actually magnifies the crisis, and that's where the patience or the risk appetite of the business is tested. And that's where the integrated efforts have also started in that. Why don't you look into a complete cyber crisis also as a scenario merged into your BCP? This is there as far as regulations are concerned. Even RBI talks of it, even IRDA talks of it. But the realization is primarily a post facto of the incidents, if I may say, whereby either people are learning from others or they are actually introspecting their own infrastructure and the way things and the processes are designed. Hope I answered your question.
Yes, thanks, Abhishek.
Puneet, just I would like to add here one line on zero trust.
Yeah.
Like, look, the way that the BCP scale in this pandemic is huge. You know that. Now everybody is work from home, and we don't know who is logging. So this use case of zero trust, because till couple of months back, I cannot understand like why we will use this zero trust, but now use case is building. because you cannot trust like who is logging here. So everyone must go through some kind of checks and balance while logging into that critical business application into the organization. So everyone must be authenticated, and risk-based authentication should be implemented, and overall zero trust will have to adopt every organization.
Thank you. I would ask Sunil if you can add to your some pointers to this question.
Yeah. So you're referring to zero trust, right? Hello.
Yeah, with regard to zero trust, and you're free to address the other 2 points as well, probably which Abhishek has said. So what are your viewpoints, if you can share your viewpoints as well?
So I will just add to what Abhishek said with reference to BCP. BCP is a earlier the traditional BCPs we used to document, and we used to have a situation where we used to factor in the alternate locations as part of the BCP strategy. But the strategy has changed now. That is, we don't have to consider a branch office or other office as a strategy, but we have to consider the person as a BCP resource as part of our strategy. And this is what has changed after this COVID-19 situation. And that is one. And the companies are now rethinking on the strategy, like how better they can make their the business continuity plan, and they can include this kind of scenarios which we had currently now going through. So work from home is one situation where is something which as part of the BCP strategy. Working from home, go remote is a new strategy which has come now, and all the BCP plans will include that, and that is what from an BCP point of view. The second thing wanted to add to what Abhishek mentioned is about the zero trust. So zero trust framework is widely used by all organizations now. We also have enabled zero trust, and this is the need of the hour. We have to this is something we have to enable organizations as well as to make it more secure. We have to ensure that as a CISOs we protect our business information, the digital assets which are there on internet. So that is where we need to ensure that zero trust technology is being implemented properly. That's the addition what Abhishek said.
So with that, Sri Lakshmi, do we have some time?
Yes, I think we can wrap in another
practically, yes.
minutes. Yeah.
So okay. So basically, the takeaway is that my co-panelists and the industry is talking about that are definitely, as per Ramesh, the awareness should be the key in terms of consolidation at a regulatory level, whether it is a framework of policies should be in place or not, and also to make people aware, what are the associated risks in terms of customer data is definitely need of the hour. The protection about the customer data, the awareness of organizations to how to be ready in terms of the BCP or in terms of the new normal be getting accepted, because the physical presence is talking about like the virtual it has been replaced with virtual presence now. The tools, collaborative tools like video conferencing or BYOD or probably hooking onto the network security, interoperability, something which has to be taken as a need of the hour to address all these issues. So with that, I may work towards the end of this session. So I give one big thanks to all of my co-panelists and the very efficient audience, and they had been very patient in listening to us. With that, I wrap it up. Thank you once again, and you have a great evening ahead.